Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
Britain's most hated company.
BBC News with Hugh Edwards. It's 6 o'clock.
Is highly controversial.
The BBC has no
Why?
place in most of the activities that it is currently conducting.
The most extreme project
the BBC
I've ever
is the most hated company.
Maybe, yeah, but the video, look at this guy.
Most of the activities that it is currently conducting.
The most
This is the guy we react to.
How you make it here?
I don't know, but we react to him.
Wait, what channel is that?
What channel this is? This is some small channel.
Oh,
Tom Hayden, but we
Oh.
react to this guy.
oh yes.
extreme project I've ever made.
Wow.
Looks like he got like a cease and desist by BBC or something like that. I don't know.
Really?
What
I don't
Hugh
know.
Edwards did damaged the reputation and the trust for the BBC.
Former BBC news presenter Hugh Edwards has pleaded guilty of making indecent images of
Classic BBC, that classic.
Huh?
Oh yeah.
And has the power to upset a lot of people. And there's one infamous company at the heart of it all.
What's going on at the BBC?
is that some people think it's biased.
Is it now the Biased Broadcasting Corporation?
Do you like BBC?
Britain's BBC has been knocked off its feet by another serious error.
British media conglomerate that you might know because they've been platforming predators for the past 50 years.
Oh, oh,
Wow.
oh. You know, how I know BBC is credible, reliable news. I always hear positive. I never heard
Yeah.
bad things.
They say here that if you want to get unbiased news, watch BBC. But we when we did the news video, remember the long video we did about news, you guys in the comments did say that in the UK, BBC is biased because there was like some sort of rape scandal and they didn't cover it at all.
Oh,
So
Never heard of
they had
that.
some sort of agenda, yeah. So
Let me ask you something. When you think of public service, what comes to mind? Probably things like the police, the NHS, schools, or your local council. But nowhere near the top of that list would you think of the BBC. But in fact, they are the largest public service broadcaster in the world. We trust them to provide the news, radio, entertainment, and TV coverage across the UK and even globally, all on the grounds that they're impartial, fair, and won't have a track record of corruption and abuse. Oh wait, that's not quite the case. In this video, I'm investigating the complexities
did
of
you
what's
watch
often dubbed the
BBC when you were in Lithuania, or like
we didn't have
only?
it
Oh, so in Lithuania you only take Lithuanian news.
on a regular TV. Yes, then if you have cable, there was CNN, I think.
Ah, okay.
and in covering how, rather than being the beloved institution it once was, how it now finds itself at the centre of controversy and to what I believe as Britain's most hated company. If you live in the UK, you've probably received one of those annoying letters. You know the ones I'm talking about, with the bold red text
Official investigation to the legal occupy. This is an official warning that we are carrying out an investigation of your address. We have asked you to contact us several times, but you have not responded. There is still no record of a TV license at this property. The law. It is a criminal offense to watch or record live TV programs on any channel or to download or watch BBC programs on iPlayer unless you have a TV license. It doesn't matter what equipment you use to watch, whether a TV set, desktop, computer, laptop, tablet, mobile phone, games called. Oh. So what if you don't use BBC? You don't watch BBC? I don't understand.
Wait,
So basically, they're saying every household has to have a TV license, even though if you don't watch TV.
I don't understand
I
that.
don't understand it. Is what?
I thought this was more like if you're like,
Huh?
for example, he's a YouTuber and he's covering BBC content. I thought they sent him this because they say, wait, you don't have a license to put our material without us getting a.
That's what I assume too. But I think he's just basically showing one of the things that you have to deal with while living in the UK.
Oh.
I think that's what that video was about. Yeah.
that's impossible to ignore. You may be breaking the law. We've opened an investigation. It's one of those half threats that you feel will never be followed through. But what exactly are they? They are a constant reminder that whether you're watching the BBC or not, that they want you to pay for it. It's in their interest. The BBC is funded by a compulsory TV license, equating around £170 per year as of
The
2025, and it dates back to post-war Britain, whereby the fee people paid went towards
So
rebuilding.
each
That's a
month,
lot of money.
170 a year.
Yeah.
So each month you're paying
That's
about like
15 quid a year. What
That's
the fuck?
wow.
A lot of money.
building
I could
broadcasting infrastructure.
I saw how you could spend 5 quid at a bistro.
Yeah, that's 3 days worth of lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Structure. and we just never stopped paying for it. Now, instead of building infrastructure, the fee pays for the BBC's operations, whilst lining CEOs' pockets and paying presenters millions, with radio host Zoe Ball standalone on a near £1 million annual salary. But what's the rebuke? Surely, if I watch the BBC, I should pay the BBC. I mean, it's only logical. And
But
you'd
what
be
about
completely
us
right.
abroad? We
But
receive it for free? Maybe
I
our...
think it's included in our cable subscription, probably.
Oh.
there's a lot of caveats. For decades, there have been people riled up in the streets, online, or even in government,
Oh,
standing
wow.
against the TV license and the BBC itself. With the core pillars being funding methods, corrupt presenters, and media bias. With the latter becoming so bad, people on all sides of the political spectrum standing against the BBC and calling out for media bias.
The BBC often finds itself under attack because of its purported commitment to impartiality. From the left calling it too right-wing, to the right calling it too left-wing. You know the story. We've heard it all before.
But how can you actually be sure of bias and not be subjective?
Is it now the Biased Broadcasting Corporation ripe for reform? Or is it still an invaluable national treasure?
Well, this video's sponsor, Ground News, can help with exactly that. You see, unintentional, and in today's landscape, news isn't just another news. Each story is covered across and what angles they makes it easy to completely know. Formed enough
He's a
to uncover
student.
deeper truth. Code Hayden, H-A-D, code on screen to take hold. You're also helping echo chambers and thinking. The debate of BBC bias, no matter which take you have, all comes back to TV licensing. As the British public pay to watch the BBC, they have to remain impartial. They can't have a side. And trying to mediate across differing views is virtually impossible, which has monumentally fueled further hate for the licensing model. Simply put, the consensus is it's broken, unsustainable, and even goes as far to use corrupt enforcement tactics.
They're here to conduct that warrant on behalf of the TV license. Is that signed by it's all legal.
People hate the TV license.
Some people think that their complaints aren't heard. Well, what I've looked at is the evidence. 39% of complaints last year were in relation to impartiality. Audience faith in the BBC has gone down.
And you see, given the technicality of TV licensing, if you wanted to watch an ITV News live stream on youtube.com, you have to pay the BBC. You have to pay the middleman that rather isn't even a middleman and just wants your money. It's crazy. And in today's world, where we have endless access to streaming platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Netflix, literally everything at our fingertips, people have no real need to rely on the BBC anymore, or in fact any live TV, and are even cutting ties, cancelling their TV licenses, and saving themselves £170 a year. And why not? If they're not using the service...
I didn't know that if even if you choose not to watch or have that available, I think you should be able to opt out of it.
I think so, yeah. I don't know why you would have to pay if you don't watch the channel. That is crazy
And
concept.
it's crazy they send a letter in the mail say, hey, you're not paying.
Yeah, that's wild.
Why should they pay for them? But as you'd expect, trying to stop paying money to Britain's billion-pound media empire isn't exactly easy.
If you don't pay your TV licence,
we'll break your legs. Then you won't run. Run. You won't run.
Pay your TV licence.
By order of
the BBC management.
You'd think cancelling your licence would be the end of it. Well, not quite. When people start opting out, the BBC doesn't just let it slide. Instead, they start sending out letters threatening the imposition of investigations. These letters are designed to make you feel like you've done something wrong, like you're breaking the law, just by stopping payment for something you don't even use. And when people ignore those letters, the BBC hands it over to an external company called Capita. But who are they? Capita is responsible for investigating those who don't pay. And that means they will send agents to your door. And these agents don't just knock to ask questions. They're there to see if you have a TV that's receiving signals, in the hopes that they can catch you out on the pre-assumption that you should pay the BBC. If they believe that you're watching live TV without a license, they can report you and you could be prosecuted. But the grey area is, you can have a TV and just watch Netflix. And that's a highly common scenario. Live TV in itself is becoming borderline redundant, and people prefer getting their news online or streaming shows.
So do people hide the TVs?
No, I don't know. Unplug the cord if you have a TV
you don't have to answer the door, do you? No?
I don't know. I don't know how that's... But yeah, like, what is this, like, live TV now? How stupid is like, oh, I have to set an appointment with my TV when I'm going to watch something. Like, what the fuck is this TV to tell me when to watch something? I'm going to watch it when I want to watch it. And that's the beauty of Netflix and YouTube and other platforms that you stream on demand. Not like, oh, 9 o'clock, I have to be at home to watch something. The only exception is sport games, unfortunately. You can't do that.
How come?
I mean,
I guess
you can watch them late, but you know it's not the same. You, the social media, you already see kind of the outcome, so you have to like isolate yourself. So like that That's the only thing that you really
Isn't
need
it
the
the same with other
appointment.
TV shows too? Like, for example, like when a really popular show comes out, like for example, I have to avoid social media so I don't see spoilers.
I guess, but I never watched TV shows on demand. Never once in my. I mean, okay, in Lithuania when I was a kid, yeah, sure. But like as the moment, like now I was able to download stuff, I would always watch it on
And you
when I
never see
downloaded.
spoilers?
No,
Mm.
I would always download on my time. The only exception is this sporting events that you have to watch live, unless you just want to watch for the, not for the excitement of like who's gonna win, but just more like for the watch film, like an analysis of the game, of like if you love the game to want to see what, okay, but if you want to like for the excitement of who's gonna win and whatnot, yeah, you have to watch it live. That's the only thing.
Digitally, but it doesn't end there.
We will drive you as hard as we can to get as much as we can out of you because we're greedy. If you spend 15 minutes going from door to door and they're only about 2 minutes apart, then you're not going to see enough customers. Not seeing enough customers, you're not going to generate enough return to the company, and the company will be kicking my backside.
In 2023, the most common crime for women to be prosecuted for in the UK was TV license evasion. Sorry, what? In any country, how is the biggest crime for half of the population TV license evasion? I don't know about you, but it doesn't quite sit right. And to add to the mix, Capita is also known for their, let's say, creative tactics, as there are reports of agents using police assistance or plugging in a TV to make it seem like someone isn't paying for a license. And by reports, I mean video evidence. These practices feel like they're designed to trap people, especially those who don't know their rights or those who are too intimidated to argue or deny access where applicable. And that's likely a factor that women receive higher prosecutions than men in this category.
It is to be noted that the BBC do try to separate themselves from Capita, the company they use and still use, claiming to investigate the TV license collectors and trails of abuse and what's often dubbed bullying, which is where the dub TV license goons has surfaced wide around the internet, presumably trying to highlight what the uploaders believe to be nonsensical and idiotic behavior by
I
the
just
TV
did not
license
answer the door for
enforcers.
them.
As a discretion, if you need
The
a
only
TV
thing is when they bring police, it's like, what?
Pretend you're not home. I don't know.
license, pay for the license. This video in no way is encouraging not paying for something you should be paying for. Since the BBC are claiming 170 quid from most households, you'd think they'd be sitting pretty sweet with that steady stream of luxurious revenue. However, the reality is the BBC
Yeah,
is
I want to
facing a
know
serious
what's the
funding
total revenue just from that.
A lot of money.
crisis. This is largely due to a
You're
combination
telling me
of
the
factors.
population of UK,
It's like 70 million.
of
I
all
think.
of UK, not just
I'm not sure the breakdown.
Oh,
Including the
because they
rise of
get it from everybody.
Again, I'm not sure on the details.
Streaming services, changing media consumption habits, and paying presenters way too much money. As I've already said, younger audiences are increasingly opting for on-demand services like Netflix, YouTube, and Spotify, which doesn't contribute to the BBC's funding. Oh wait, I mean only currently doesn't. As of February 2025, the UK government are reportedly looking
Wait,
into
they're
making it so if
considering-
you want to stream
To charge Netflix for a license.
Oh,
That's
but
crazy.
but don't all like
That's
shows
crazy.
ask for a license? Like they have to license it, so it's valid, no?
Let's hear what
Unless
they
it's
say.
news, or is it
Well,
different?
to me, it would be valid if you can watch BBC on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's a BBC on Netflix subscription, then okay, fine. But if you don't watch BBC, why the fuck would you pay for BBC if I don't watch it?
Mm.
shows.
I say
no
that all
matter
the time. When there's nothing on TV, the company needs to give me my money.
And that's why we cut the TV. We only
Mhm.
have the streaming now because there's nothing on TV to watch. And especially
Mhm.
like on appointment, like, oh, TV controls my life. At 9 o'clock, I have to be home. No.
Platform, you pay the BBC.
That's a
you
good
have to pay
decision we
the
made.
not-so middleman. This funding crisis also stems from inflation, budget cuts, and also a need to adapt to new technologies. The BBC faces significant challenge in balancing its books, and this bleak picture only gets worse when you learn 500,000 people cancelled their TV licenses in the last year, with a highly likely factor to do with the company landing itself in a barrage of controversy. Let's take Hugh Edwards. Once a face that millions of people trusted to deliver the news,
A few moments ago, Buckingham Palace announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
is now associated with a horrific scandal, whose tarnished reputation is a reflection of the bigger issue within the BBC, a pattern of mismanagement, potential negligence, and a disturbing lack of accountability. Edwards wasn't an isolated case, it was the final nail in the coffin for many who had already started to lose faith in the organisation. Let's talk about Jimmy Savile, Britain's most prolific offender. For decades he was a beloved figure on the BBC. He was treated like royalty. The BBC celebrated him, gave him primetime slots, and even allowed him to host children's shows. They were very complicit in every way. The BBC, in its unchecked power, not only failed to protect its audience, but allowed Savile to continue his behaviour, also unchecked, for years. And even when the truth about the abuse came to light, the BBC didn't immediately own up to its role. Instead, they were caught in a web of denial, with officials scrambling to cover up the extent of their negligence. This isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about entire organisations' inability to see the bigger picture, and the failure to protect the very people they claim to serve, their employees and the public.
But more ominously, the BBC has such a high track record of offenders.
It's got a list: Jimmy Savile, Chris Denny, Chris Langham, Jonathan King, Rolf Harris, Stuart Hall, and currently Hugh Edwards.
And the more broken thing about it, the licence fee you pay fund the people the BBC hire, meaning the public has inadvertently funded abusers.
They got her a little something.
I wonder if it ever made.
Well, Walt rolled his
I wonder if that
401k
made
account
news
into an
over here in the
Empower-
States. Never heard of this. Have you?
No. Probably made news. I mean, depends what, like if there's like world news segment, I'm sure they have made it.
Which only contributes to the larger hate of the BBC. The public trust that the BBC had so carefully cultivated over decades was being eroded, and yet, instead of making meaningful changes, they buried their heads in the sand. In Gen Z terms, the BBC is cooked, and is scrambling for stability again. The BBC is often dubbed a variety of lovely names, with notable ones sticking like the Biased Broadcasting Corporation.
What we've heard from audiences is that some people think it's biased.
Because it is evidence of bias, quite severe bias, I would say.
She could have gone Brexit, she could have gone lockdown, she could have gone vaccine, she could have gone the whole of BBC Verify, which is an absurd joke. She could have gone failing to call Hamas a terrorist organisation. She could have gone Emily Maitlis' entire career. She could have gone the woman laughing about Boris Johnson was another classic example. So there are so many, it's not that hard. So,
But the actual BBC guidelines mean that that was bad journalism. That was not sticking to the guidelines on getting to sources to verify the information before you go with it. So the BBC already has guidelines in place to stop that happening.
Given every story that I'd admittedly rather not host an opinion on the internet, do I think the BBC is actually biased? Not fully. Do I think there's areas to be ironed out? Yes. But you see, as a company that has the obligation to please tens of millions of people, all that have different views, it's impossible. Everyone will constantly try to fund the belief they already have. This is called confirmation bias, meaning if I support left-wing policy, left-wing content and left-wing MPs, I'm more willing to accept the news that agrees with everything I already think, disrupting the possibility of that view changing. And the same premise applies the other way. When you hear something you don't fully want to hear, you dismiss it and rebuke it. Meaning when someone watches the BBC and they cover practically anything, there's always going to be someone that's annoyed and calls bias.
But the BBC gets particular attention, partly because we've got a lot of critics in politics and in the press, and partly because we're rightly held to an especially high standard.
I'm not disputing the large array of bias that people have raised before, but do I genuinely think the company overall contributes to the media bias, as we see with more extreme companies? No. And the funny thing is, there will be people annoyed with my stance on this, which further enforces my point of confirmation bias. Which leads me to something far bigger, which you might agree with. If the BBC physically cannot please everyone for a license fee model that requires impartiality, the fee must be scrapped. It's redundant, and rather than serving its intended...
He has a point. The fee is there because you have to appease everybody. If you cannot appease it, because by that point becomes what? People who are not appeased by you, they not the one want to pay you. Like, you know, and yeah, he has a point there.
Purpose, it only creates more complications than it does applications. In today's world, where media consumption has evolved so drastically, the BBC's traditional license fee model doesn't fit. The system is outdated and is forcing people to pay for something they no longer use or value. People have the right to choose what they consume, and the choice shouldn't come with a forced financial burden.
In this day and age, the BBC will have to take its place in competition with all other creators of content on a level
I think
playing
that's
field.
what they're afraid of. They have to compete.
They have to compete with and become like a for-profit company, yeah.
And we'll have to compete fairly.
It's time for the BBC to evolve. Scrapping this fee would be the first step in aligning with modern expectations. And instead, the BBC should roll ads, roll subscriptions, obtain revenue in the same way their competitors do. With the BBC's current model, though they aren't a monopoly anymore, they place themselves...
So what, they don't show any ads?
I don't know.
Because the guy said BBC should play ads. So what it implies to me, BBC does not show any ads.
So
That's
they always have
interesting.
constant content.
That's interesting. How would you even...
Probably that's why.
That's crazy. Wow.
on this superior high ground, whereby they act like they're better than competing companies and shouldn't need ads or placements, i.e. to provide their high quality, incomparable productions in their own...
I mean, to be fair though, Oh, there's BBC America.
Yeah.
If there's no ads, that is high quality, I would think so, because you always
It's
have
a
constant.
premium.
Yeah, that's
Some of the sounds interesting to me. BBC Living. There was another one. BBC Earth. BBC Lifestyle.
This country. I didn't know BBC had that many.
Wow.
As far as I'm concerned, it's
Yeah.
only BBC.
Yeah, me too.
Which in itself is partially contradictory.
That's why people in Britain and right around the world in huge numbers watch, read, and listen to what we say every single day.
Because if they were better, then running ads would still obtain them as much money, if not more. I genuinely do not see the BBC holding longevity if something does not change. And for any Gen Z viewers, the BBC needs to lock in for real. There's a lot of different strays that I haven't quite mentioned in this video, but I feel this is the main premise, and this is why most people hate the BBC. But more importantly, I want to know your thoughts on this topic down below. And
Well, they have to adjust and make changes
Alright.
if they have the majority of people dislike their performance.
Yeah, very interesting video. I didn't know BBC was that hated. Wow, it's interesting.
Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. And as always, share as much kindness as possible.